Hey everybody, welcome to the Discovery Foundation Robot Week Maker Lab, How to Program Your Robot. We are so happy that you're here. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, Syilx, and Tsuut'ina peoples, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginals peoples. We honor their connection the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. Discovery Foundation Robot Week is brought to you by CAST, the Kootenai Association of Science and Technology's youth program, GLOWS, Growing and Learning Opportunities with STEAM. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. Since 1998, CAST has led our region's economic development through technology and innovation. We are the only nonprofit tech association serving the entire Kootenai region. Our main offerings are our Venture Acceleration Program, the Nelson Innovation Center, and GLOWS, our youth program. I'm Tanya Malcolm, GLOWS Program Manager. Also on the call with me today is CAST's Community Engagement Coordinator, Laura Vash, and our Maker Lab instructor, Noah Rawick. He'll introduce himself once we get started. I would like to thank our partners Livet, who have been instrumental in helping us move our programs online. We are so excited for you to experience their productions during Robot Week, which starts on Monday. Visit them at livet.earth. Robot Week was funded by the Discovery Foundation, whose mission is innovation, entrepreneurship, and education of stimulating the establishment and growth of scientific and technological industries, skills, and expertise. You can learn more at discoveryfoundation.ca. Before we start, I'd like to go over a few webinar tips and house rules. The chat is open for you to connect with one another and to have fun. It's a safe space for conversations about robotics and this webinar. Good manners, respect, and a safe atmosphere are expected. The chat will be monitored, but it's not where you need to ask our team questions. If you have a question, the Q&A box is where you need to send it so that we can let Noah, our instructor, know. Depending on the type of question, we'll choose whether to interrupt Noah and ask the question at the time it's submitted, or to save it for the Q&A that we're gonna have at the end of the webinar. We will not be using the raise hand tool. Don't forget, this webinar is being recorded and you will have a chance to view it online as much as you need before Discovery Foundation Robot Week begins next week, Monday, June 15th. We'll send you a link to access the recording shortly after the webinar ends. My own kids just participated in this workshop last week. It's really good. Now, let's program a robot. I will invite our instructor to take it from here.
Right. So welcome to the Maker's Lab for the mBot. So we'll be using the mBot without any add-ons, and we'll be getting into it pretty quickly here. I am Noah Rawick. I'll be your instructor. I have had a bit of experience in the local tech area, and I am, of course, the facilitator of the Nelson Youth Center's Makerspace. So I've had experience helping people with their projects and making my own using 3D printing, Arduino, and the mBot. I hope to give you a good understanding and a good place where you can start learning about robotics and having fun with it. So I'll be getting into the infrared remote that comes with your mBot. This will be the controller mBot with the pre-programmed stuff on it. So if you see in the top left corner of the image where it says remote manual control, or A, will set your thing to default, will make your mBot light up with a white light. And that will be able so you can control it from there with the 4 arrows of up, down, right, and left. There's also B, which is object avoidance mode, which the light will turn green and it will avoid objects. And then C, which is line following, which we don't have set up right now, but if you have with the piece of paper with the lines, you can use that for line following. You can also control the speed between 1 and 9 on your robot. 1 being slowest and 9 being the fastest. That said, that's just the basics for messing around with a robot. The real thing comes into programming. If you see this little diagram on the screen, your code will run. This is a diagram of the mBot, which is the coding app for the mBot. That's will be on your phone. You've gotten the link in the email for that. This is one of the 2 apps that you will be using in this webinar. So your code will stop at the very top. When the play button is clicked, it will then start, then go left to right, and then top to bottom. So in this example we see here, it says when the play button is clicked, it starts, then it goes into this repeat block, which essentially will, once it reaches the end, it will start up at the top over and over again, repeating it. But the first command in the repeat block is lights up on the left and lights up on the right, which are both set to black, which sets the lights to turn off essentially. And then the wait until block, which is a function, we'll get into more of that in a little bit, will wait until the mBot is picked up. So there's a little sensor or something telling the mBot is picked up. Then it will light up both lights red for 0.2 seconds, and then go into the next bot, and then light up blue for 0.2 seconds. As long as it's picked up, it will repeat this little section of code, turning flashing between red and blue. You see where the wait until block is light up in green. So in your when you're using the app, it will whatever is running at the current time will be light up in this green outline. So in coding, it is just often to think of things in small little steps or commands broken up into things, because it can only take some very simple commands that the machine already knows, and you give them a list of these in order to do complex tasks, such as object avoidance, moving around the room, playing your favorite song, or just doing a light show. So now I will switch over to my phone screen share and I'll show off the app. We'll be first. This is what you'll see when you first open up the mBot app, which is the coding app. You will see on the far left, mBot, which is just the different levels for teaching purposes. So on your own time, you can go through these different levels and learn about all the different blocks. They are levels, so they only will unlock as you do the earlier levels to do the later levels. And they'll go into each of the blocks in greater detail. But in our case, in our webinar, we're going to go back to the main screen. There's also add-ons, but if you have add-ons, you can use, it'll go into that, and also the different models on the far right. It's coming soon. But in our case, we'll use the crate, the little rocket shape underneath. That is where you'll make your own code, and we'll have free range over all the available blocks in it. This was so I'm just going to clean this up real quick. So if you see, this is going to be your workspace on the app, this blue grid, and you always will need the Win Play button, click button to run any program. And then to run your app, you need to hit the bottom right corner, the blue button. It will light up the thing and turn off automatically because there is no code in it. So there's nothing for it to do. So I will then go into the different types of blocks we will be using in the app. But before that, I'm just going to quickly mention that for any blocks to be used, they need to be connected to one another, starting with the green block, and we'll go in order. If they're not connected to one another, it will not do anything with it. Only the things connected to the green block. So, okay. Going into the different blocks, the start block, which you'll need for every code, then move blocks. These are the different types of move blocks in the mBot. It uses visual code in these different blocks of code. It's different than script, which you would have to write out every line of text with a keyboard. This one has it all made up in these little blocks to use visually. And then you can just input the variables by tapping on the different points. So if I drag into the two ones we'll be using, actually three, we'll be using the forward 1 second at the speed of blank. And then we will also be using the keep moving forward at the speed of blank. And we'll also be using the stop function. These are the three main moving blocks we'll be using in this example. There are others but have a little more control over what you're doing. As example, like controlling individual motors and servos and different add-ons, but we'll focus on the main.
Hey Noah, Tanya here. There's a participant who's having a problem connecting their mBot to Bluetooth. Do you have any troubleshooting tips for that participant?
So first of all, you need to make sure you got your Bluetooth turned on your phone and also your location. You need these two things for it to connect. And when you go back to the main screen, you hit this connect thing. I first have to disconnect and make sure things right next to your mBot and it will connect.
Okay, so if the participant wants to let me know if you've had success after making sure both Bluetooth and location are enabled on your phone. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully that answers that. So once, yeah. So back, okay. So first one we'll be focused on is forward. This one, when we plug this into our top green button and hit the play button, it will make your robot move forward for 1 second at the normal speed. There are three variables you can change in this block. The forward one, which you can switch between up, down, right, and left by just tapping on the word that says forward or whatever it is in the little lighter green highlight, and you can switch between them. And you can also control the speed by tapping on the block that has the number between slow, fast, and fastest. There's also, you will be also using the keep moving forward one, which will essentially cause the robot to keep moving forward until it is told to stop. So to show off this completely, we'll need a few other blocks, such as, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to talk about the different blocks. Okay. So there are also the show blocks with the play note block, which will play a note, and you can also choose between the different note, half note, whole note, and double, and you can play your own little song if you know the music theory. There also are the light up blocks, which we'll also be using, which are the first one here, lights up to whatever color, both lights for a set time. The second one, you can control lights individually between the left and right one. And this one doesn't have a timer, so you'll have to place in the code when you want to switch between the colors and use other blocks for controlling time, but you can control both colors. So I can choose for this side, blue, and the other side, green. And remember from the example one, that black means it's off. The light will turn off, so only one light will light up in that case. For throwing away blocks, you've seen me do a different couple times, but if you put your finger on it and hold and drag it off where the blocks came from, this little garbage can icon will come up and you can just throw them away. And if the same blocks will always be here if you need to get them again for whatever reason. There are other ones for extensions like before, but we'll focus on the basics. Now, the sensing, which is the one I find the most interesting, is this is how your robot will interact with the world around it. One we will mainly focus on will be object ahead. This block essentially has a preset value with when it sees an object ahead, it will do a certain action. So if I go into the two different, I'll show that off in a little bit. Then we got data blocks. This is how you store variables. So if you wanted to store a number or some form of information, you'd use one of these variables. And you could call on this anywhere in the code. So let's say you wanted to count how many times it took a corner or things like that. You can do things like that with help with the math blocks. And that's a little more advanced than what we're going to get into, but it is neat to know that they're there. There are also just the blocks block tab. This is where you can make custom blocks. This is if you know some script and you want to make your own custom blocks, you can using C. There's also the control ones, which is also one of the most powerful types of blocks. These will control what the order of things. The two ones we'll be focusing on are repeat. This will essentially, what we showed in the example, we'll just repeat it. And the wait until, and we'll also briefly touch on the wait one. So basically this will make it wait for a certain set time, making the robot not doing anything for a certain set time. The wait until won't do something until it sees it is a true statement on its wait until. So wait until robot see object ahead. And then there's the repeat will just simply repeat. There's also for repeat set amount of times and other ones, but those will be more explained greater detail on the levels. I'll just focus on the greater concepts. That said, we can now start to get into the actual coding part. Now we understand the basics of all the different blocks. We broke this up into 3 sections so you can understand this a little better. We'll be focusing on motion, so moving your robot around. We'll be focusing on showing, so the sounds and the lights are in 2 different sections. So we'll be doing the showing, so with the light, we'll first do lights, so how to add lights to your code. So in our examples, we're having lights in your code indicating your robot doing different things while it does it. Same for the notes. And the third will be notes. This will hopefully give you a better idea how to use these 3 main key functions for the obstacle course and the special trick. So I will start with the motion. So I will first get into the move function, and then have it so it will move forward until it senses an object ahead. Oops, I hit the wrong block. That's the distance to object. I need the wait up. The object ahead block. Easy. A common mistake with that one is it'll look very similar and do similar functions, but the second one requires a little more setup. Then we'll have it so it will stop and when it sees an object. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and show that off on my camera. Oops. So hopefully that's switched over to the webcam and you can now see the mBot. So
yeah, we can see the mBot, thanks.
So I'm just gonna hit the run thing and it will stop. So now it'll just instantly stop and the code will stop running because I have set up so it only doesn't have the repeat function. So I'll quickly go back to my screen sharing on my phone again. Right. So for that to repeat, and let's switch this to once it sees an object, it turns right instead. So we'll put that there, tap on this, turn right. We want it to do a 90 degrees one, and I know it by ahead of time by experience that for 1 second on the normal speed, we'll do a 180. So I want to make it do a 90 degree, I'm going to half that. So I can set it for half a second there. So when I hit play, it will now turn right and stop. I haven't done the repeat function. So if I go into controls and repeat, I then have to, so any blocks that you're moving around, the top one will always move the lower ones. So if I picked it up from a lower block, they'll break it apart, just for your information. So if I grab the top one here and stick it in the repeat block and stick on the play button, it will now repeat the motion. So when I hit play, it will just keep repeating it until I tell it to stop with the red button in the bottom right corner of the app. So that's the main focus on the movement ones. We can change this by tapping on the right. We can even make it do the 180 by the default by switching this to a 1. Or we can do a whole range of things of just simply modifying the variables or adding more functions. So if we wanted it to, at the start, for example, we wanted it to just do its own thing without any input, we can just hit these things. We put these two. I'll set move it back and forth at the beginning for about, say, 0.3 seconds. And this will make it go back and forth at the beginning before entering the repeat block. So let's quickly bog back to the beginning and then go into the repeat block and then do the 180, as I said. So you can see we can get a whole range of movements and different responses out of it, depending on how we use the movement blocks. So when you make your own code, think of how you want your robot to move with these blocks. So in my example, I did the 90-degree angle because if it saw an object in a box maze, let's say, everything's at 90-degree angles. So when it avoids objects, it could just turn. But we could have it just as easily with it it would keep turning until it stops seeing the object. So let me get that. We'll move this one out and go into move, and then we'll keep moving forward, but we'll have it move to the right. So whenever it sees an object, it'll just go right until it stops seeing the object. See? And that's more akin to the pre-programmed object avoidance. It is not actually set to a certain amount of movement. It's just whenever it sees something, it turns. Or if we want the best of both worlds, let's say we don't want, because there's a bit of delay between the robot and the app, which is a bit of the issue with the Bluetooth, but we can have it so that it will turn for 2 seconds every time. And that will give it a little more dynamics. So that one, that doesn't, oh, I forgot to switch it to right. So yeah, there you go. See, now it moves a tiny bit each time. So also, when you're doing your testing things, it's recommended to put it on the floor. As you can see, it's a bit tricky at the table, and you don't want to worry about it falling on the ground. But for this setup, it's just easy to show it on the table. So if you're good with that, I can now go into showing about the lights, adding lights to this code. Seems like no one has any questions so far, but I will then go into the lights. So this is the second part. We'll be now focusing on the lights. As I briefly touched on before, these are the two blocks we'll be using. The light up for the specific color for a set time, and the second one, the light up. So I'm not gonna rebuild my code from scratch. To show off that, you can keep adding on your same code and you don't have to repeat everything from scratch. You can add multiple concepts in the same code. Like for example, we can have it at the beginning, when we turn on the robot, we can have it light up telling it's on. We'll switch it to green for 1 second, things good. Then we'll add, when it's going forward, 2 red lights. We can also, then we'll get some more. So before I go into more detailed things, I'll show you a few tricks with things. So if you hold down with your thumb on a certain block, you can duplicate and duplicate below. Duplicate deletes only that block. Duplicate below block, every block that's connected below it will also be duplicate. So if you're reusing certain blocks of code and you're just doing a tiny modification, this can be really handy for the, I know there's a bit of delay, so I'm talking a little ahead of what you're seeing, just giving you a heads up. So hopefully there's not too much of a delay that it causes confusion. So you can, but if you want, I'll briefly go into a control one. So if you want to repeat a specific task multiple times, you just want to do one task over and over again, you can also just put the repeat one and then the repeat do block, and you can set this number here, and you can switch between how many times you want to repeat a single action. So you don't have to have a huge list of the same block doing the same thing over and over again. Just, it's a little trick, it's very handy. And that's how people, usually when you think in code, there's different ways of thinking in it. And this one is based off object ordering thinking. So we're thinking each of these blocks as a separate object within the code, if that makes any sense, versus just a list of commands. So we're just gonna grab one of these and have it when it turns right, that only the right one lights up and that one is black. So now when we hit run, it will light up green for 1 second, enter the repeat block, light up both lights red as it goes forward until it sees an object ahead. Then it'll switch between the left light being off, the right one being only on as it turns right. So now let's do that. It may be really small on your screen if you can see what I'm doing with the robot, but just for convenience sake and also clarity, so I don't have to switch between everyone, I'm going to mainly stay on the app and keep when I do the robot in the small screen. I believe if you double click on different screens, you can make it big, so if you can switch on your side of things what you're seeing, if you desire. So that is how you would, so why would you want to add lights to your code? It doesn't, so the main reason usually in designs why we add lights is like in cars. It is indicating it's doing a certain task to humans. Because a lot of times we don't know what the machine is doing ahead of time. And that can be dangerous. So these lights are a way of indicating what the robot's doing without actually having a visual on what the code is doing. So we know the machine lights up, when it lights up green, it's turning on. The same way when you turn your computer, it lights up telling it it's on. These are quality of life features is the main idea, and safety features. So without looking at your code and seeing the different things light up, we can just look at the robot and tell what it's doing. So this is very, very clever way of doing it. You can also just have fun and light up different lights for fun. So you can have a bit of a light show. So let's say at the beginning, let's have a bit of a light show instead of just the boring turning on lights for fun. So I'm going to get rid of these. So hold this down for a second. I mean, so usually if it's just one block, it's quicker just to go into the right panel. But I just wanted to show off this feature a little more. So I'm going to have, I guess I'm going to do, oh, well, it's a bit finicky, but yeah, you get the idea. So I'm going to have it light up green, and then blue, and then red. And then I'm going to have these at 0.2 seconds, or 0.1 seconds, I guess, to be a little quicker. And then I'm going to cause this to repeat 3 times. Just have a little light show at the beginning, just for the fun of it. So in the repeat do block, which I'm now using, you can tap on the number, oh, what's happening? You guys still connected? Am I okay? I think I'm still good. Okay, something just popped up.
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
Okay.
I can't see your code anymore though. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
sorry. It must have timed out or something. Let me fix that.
Yeah.
Or I bumped something, or I lost connection. What's going on? Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. It's trying to connect. I might have to reconnect with my phone real quick.
No problem, Noah. There's some technical difficulties. I do have a couple of questions for you while you're reconnecting that. And one of them was asking if we were going to pause so that participants could try. But for the sake of time, we don't have a lot of time to pause. So that's why we're recording, and that's why you'll receive access to the recording so that you have time to try all of these coding tricks on your own time. This is more just for instruction, just to answer that. And then secondly, we had another question that was, we can't get our light block to connect to the start block. It's like two magnets repelling each other.
The light, okay, so you mean the light block and the green block. So all you have to do to connect multiple blocks is to hold on one block, drag it over the other one. It will light up a little green underneath the tooth, and then you release and it'll go into group. That should do it automatically. I personally have no issues. There's certain blocks that won't connect because they're just not designed to connect. But if they're just the light block and the play block, as shown, they should just connect. The only things that have with the variable blocks, which we are not using in this example, only connect with certain things. Like if you see but that's separate. You shouldn't, with the light up block, you should be able just to pull. I'll show you that again once I got my screen sharing going. Just see what's happened with that. I might be unable to connect. I might have lost internet. Let me just refresh my internet real quick on my phone.
Okay, while you're connecting your phone back into the webinar, I have another question. And that is about the repeat block. Someone doesn't find it in their control category.
Okay, go into the controls, and you can scroll down by holding and pulling it up and down and that should scroll through them, and you should be able to find it that way.
Is there a chance that some of the controls aren't open?
That shouldn't be the case.
Okay.
Because you are downloaded the latest version of it. You should have exactly what I have.
Okay.
Just testing my web. So, yeah, okay. I have Wi-Fi, so that's good. Just try closing that and reopening it. It might be a problem with Zoom. Zoom has done a bit of an update, so there might be a few bugs now. Okay, I'm connecting. That's farther than I was getting before. So yeah, so you should have see exactly what I'm seeing. Okay, there we go. My phone's reconnected. Okay, you have to make me a host again because I rebooted it.
That's no problem, Noah. Laura, can you handle that, please? We apologize for the technical difficulties. I'm sure most of you have been attending many Zooms these days, and often we have these issues. So we just ask for your patience, and hopefully you're getting a chance to play around with your block code.
Okay. There, you should be seeing it now. Okay, so yeah, everything I am showing you, you should have access to. Just make sure you are in the right place. You see on the main screen, there's the little rocket ship that says create. You have to be there to do what I'm doing, because that's not the same as the levels, because the levels I'll quickly show that now. I'll tap on, we'll have a very limited control. See, so I'll just tap through this real quick. You'll see how everything is locked on the left side. And it's telling you to do different things as you go through it. That is the levels. That is not the create mode. This is like the tutorial side of things, or the levels. Or if you do Minecraft, this is like survival mode, and the other one's in creative mode when you have access to everything. That's kind of the idea. So that example makes any sense. So if I go back to create, and my code will be still here. All right, I'll wait till that goes back to what I'm doing. Sorry, there's a bit of delay, so I might be going a bit too fast to see certain things. Because I don't have the delay on my screen, but there's like a second delay between mine and yours.
Okay, Noah, I'm gonna get you to pause just there while we address a few more questions in the Q&A section, okay?
Okay.
So we're using what he's using, okay? They've separated the blocks to make room for the lights, and now no blocks, not even the ones that were connected, are connecting. Now I've tried to start over, and when I trash things, they keep popping out of the trash. That's very frustrating.
Okay. With this app, it's a bit finicky with its, if you know anything about software, there's little boxes for it to tell different things what are invisible to you, and it's a very kind of picky on where you place things. So for example, I'll show you with the throw away again. To throw away, I find it's best if you drag it over, and when it turns dark and you see the trash can opening, then release. If you do it when it's not open, so you do that, it will not go into it. You have to have it, it'll make the little icon of the trash can opening and then release, then it'll throw it away. If that trash can icon's not opening for you, that means you're not quite right on it. And then for connecting things, I'll go into that again. I'll drag 2 blocks at random. Oh, that block is one of the blocks that won't connect. Maybe not so random. So these 2 move blocks. So when you see how the block I'm holding is light up green, and above it has that little green light on the groove or the tooth? So it's like Legos. Those have to be lined up and both lighting up green in the program. And when you release, they'll snap together. So there's visual cues when things are working and not working.
And can you address this specific problem, which is separating blocks to make room for light blocks, and see what that looks like?
So like I mentioned earlier, let me slow down that up, that when you drag a block, anything below that block will also come out. So if you want to put a block in, I think there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either, no, you can't just, so if I take this block, let me turn that to a light block to make it exactly as you were saying, and you drag it over, see that little green line that in the groove? Yeah. That's where it's going to be placed. So when you drag your block over the block and over the green tooth, it will then, that's telling you where you are dropping it. So be aware of that little green line. When I do it, it comes second nature doing it so much, I don't even think about that. And it just automatically pops. But when you want to take out things, it's a little trickier, because when you grab the block, everything underneath that block will connect. So except the blocks, well, repeat blocks react a little differently. So if you're in separate loop blocks or repeat blocks, only the blocks inside that will be selected. So, but you can grab the whole block by just grabbing the whole thing. So that's how they break them up. So if you want to take things out, you'll have to then grab them individually, and then say if I wanted to do this middle one, I would have to go through those and then connect these 2 back again, then put it back in. It's a little finicky because we are using visual graphics for blocks versus lines of code. lines of code, you would just delete that line of code and rewrite it. But due to we're doing blocks and we have to do these visual interfaces and dragging and dropping things like Lego, we have to interact the physical aspect of it, which can be a little frustrating at times. Let's just be aware of what you're grabbing and where you're grabbing from the code, and you should be good. And also you can just remake the blocks, high settings again if it's too much trouble to sometimes to do different things. You can always just remake them because the blocks you're using will always be there and you have no real limit on how many blocks you're using. Except for if you add too much to a code too quickly, it gets confusing. So when you're doing your own testing, I recommend starting small. Just so you have a better idea of what's happening.
Okay, we do have to move on for the sake of time. There are a few more troubleshooting questions in the Q&A. I just want to let everybody know that I do see those, but Noah does have some more things to cover, so we will connect with you after the webinar. And, or if there's time at the Q&A at the end, because we do have some space for there is a Q&A at the end, but I just want to make sure and get through all the content first. And we're close now, right, Noah?
Yeah.
So I hope that's okay with everybody. But one last thing, I'm not sure if this has been resolved, but can you just quickly show visually where the repeat block is? Because when we did that,
okay, so I forgot to mention this earlier. Everything's color coded. So the repeat blocks are yellow, so they'll be with the control blocks. And then when I was talking about the scroll thing, you just hold your thumb or finger and push up and down like you're scrolling through a list on anything else on your phone. And you can see all the different control blocks. So the repeat win is up near the top. So you see the repeat 9 do, that's the one I'm talking about, the one you can control how many, but the repeat one will just repeat forever. It's just the repeat one right below it. There's also other control statements, but we won't get into that. Those are, as I said before, more detailed in the levels. And you can also stack blocks with the repeat blocks within each other. So that's also something to be aware of.
Okay, thank you, Noah, for taking the time to help out our participants in some of their troubleshooting as we move forward.
So we are running a little close on time, but there is like a 15-minute Q&A, which we're kind of already doing next. So we can overlap those two a little bit, depending on how we want to do this. So there's one more thing I wanted to go into this, which I allotted was sound. So I'm going to get rid of this block here and just throw it so that's not going to be confusing. So I'm going to simplify that to just this and have that before. So, okay. So we have one more concept, which in the show blocks, which is sound. As I was saying with the light up blocks, you can also have things with audio cues. And also you can make your robot play different tunes for fun. So if you know different notes of a song and you can go through it and you know about half notes and the different things with this, or you're just following a music sheet and you know how to read music, you can make a full-blown song. I didn't actually get to cover the control app on this webinar due to all the more questions than last time, which which I think will be on a video, but I'll focus on this famous stuff quick. Okay, so the play note is you can control the note and it'll have a sample note of which note you place and the being a half quarter note. And then we have one, so I'm going to quickly do this, play it at the beginning, another one when it's turning right. So it's the same idea of the variables. You can control between the two lighter blue ones with the black text versus the darker blue with the white text, which is you can't control what it says. So I'm just going to quickly go through that. So there. So I made it so that I'll play a note at the beginning. I'll play a different note when it's going forward, and then it will play a note. So only do these notes each one time in it. So that's why kind of the repeat function can be useful. So when you repeat different tasks, you can have notes going on at the beginning and the end of each task, and different things. So this is how you can know what the robot's doing without seeing it. This is like the different noises you hear with inside the car of what your car is doing, or a person honking at you, getting your attention to be careful. So I'll play it. Good. So every time it sees something, it's going to play that note. So that's how you add music notes into it. So it's the same idea as the light up ads, just with noise. Now I can either go into Q&A right away, or I can briefly touch on the other app, which has controllers in it, which is more, there's a lot more to that. And there is the recorded version of last week, which I did go into that. And I also believe there are good videos on the website and on YouTube for that. So do you guys want to ask more questions, or do you want me to briefly go into the controller?
Yeah, if you can, let's see what's in the Q&A here. If you can, yeah, go into that a little bit further in terms of our participants are going to be coding for maneuvering through an obstacle course, and then there's also the special tricks category. So anything that you can add to the presentation to help them be successful in those areas would be great.
Okay. So I'll just do it quickly, and then I'll go into talk about finding more resources, because we are limited on time. So when you're switching between the apps, this is now the mBot app, which was the other app that came with in the email that you should have gotten. So this one, when you're switching between apps, be aware that you'll have to turn off your robot and turn it back on. So reboot it essentially, and then reconnect, because they are different apps, and for them to connect to one another, you have to do that each time. It's just something to be aware of as the process. So this one, you can also directly go to that one by hitting code. The build block place is where they're pre-built instructions for the add-ons in the base build. So that was like in the last webinar by Sean, but that's a digital copy of the controls. There's also, you can create your own controllers, and then there's pre-made controllers for the extensions. And the play one, I'll go into that real quickly, is the drive, draw, run, music, and voice control. The voice control is you can speak into a certain list of commands to do some very basic tasks, which is fun, but I won't go to showing that because of time. The music app, which has a piano, which you can play, and you can test out the different notes or play the pre-made songs with your robot, like the Christmas song or Happy Birthday or whatever. So that's great for testing purposes or just playing around with the music side of things. The draw and run, you can draw a path with your robot. But the issue with this, I find the corners are really sensitive. So when you're drawing a path, be very careful with drawing corners, because it won't move exactly as you draw it. Also, depending on how much grip your tires are getting. So it's a little hard to predict how it moves from how you draw. Just giving that heads up. So the Drive app is the pre-made controller in it, which you can control through your phone instead of the infrared one if you're hooked up. So you have a joystick here, which you can control the speed and the direction. Then 3 things here. The sprint one is the green one, which will make your thing run in a straight line really fast for 3 seconds. The windmill will make your robot spin for 3 seconds. And the static one will make your robot wave back and forth. So there, and you can also turn the lights on your robot by hitting the little light one, and you can honk. So we can also then go into, sorry if I'm going a bit fast, but that's sadly due to time. Then you go into the create feature. So if you tap on this one, it will bring you into here, and you can make your custom controllers. So over here is the move ones. So these are the preset move ones going like you saw the joystick, and this one's more into the infrared. So you can drag and drop these by the same way you do the block code when you're in design. You see the top of it, you can tap on between design, play. Design is when you're making your controller, and play is when you're testing it. And you can always save and name it at the end. So I will push. This requires a little more force pushing, I find. When you push and pull and drag, and you can add it. And now when I hit play, I can now control. You can see me turn with the joystick. These are pre-made ones, but you can. So this one you can't edit, but there are other ones you can. So to delete the things, you have to tap on them and hit delete. It's a little different. You can also rename them by hitting the little yellow thing in the top right when you tap on it. It's not showing up for you guys, but when you do tap on things, it will show that. Oh, there it is. So if you hit the blue is for code, red is delete, and you can rename things. So certain things you can recode. So this one has the controls over it. And I believe the 255 is the max speed on that one already. Or I think you actually can double that a little bit. You can do a little faster, but if you can see in this example one, they have it on forward for set speed, and then when you release button, it stops. And these are different states of each of the switches. So I'm gonna go a little fast. So you can then, it's just like the block code, but with more the states, instead of just having the play button, you have more states being the different switches. Also, you can open and close the bar on the side by hitting the little plus or minus arrow on the side. So you see that I'm tapping that to make that appear, that little plus and minus to open and close the tab on the side. So display is just like the display function, but these are pre-made display ones. You can play notes, change the LED. Sense, this will give you different data variable of what the robot's sensing from the built-in sensors. So this is a good way to test if your sensors are working on your robot. The ultrasonic sensor is the distance sensor. So what we were showing, you can test your distance sensor with this, and this will give you either a graph or a numerical one of showing how far it sees the object. So quickly do that. So I'll drive it in, hit play. And now see, as I move my hand closer, this should go up, but the delay is a bit rough. So yeah. So each time I move my hand up and down, there's going to be a squiggly line showing the distance. If that's a graph, if you're not used to graph and just prefer, oops. So when you hit the back arrow, be careful because that brings you back to the main thing, and that's where you can save it. So I will go back to sensing. So you can also do just the numerical value, if that makes more sense to you. And I will just give you a straight up numerical value of how far it's sensing. So that's where the variables come in, is with these different sensor inputs and outputs, and interpreting what's sensing and telling what to do with that information. And then custom, these are completely from scratch, as I was showing before how you could edit codes, but this will have nothing preset on them. So you can literally put anything you want from the very beginning. So I'll tap on that to show again. So on the top one is the little play button, which are all these different states, the different play buttons you can control. The next one are the movement ones. They're slightly different. Instead of having all up and down, right, left, all in one, they have those in separate blocks of up and down and right, left. I'm not sure why they did it, but they did. This is the display one, is the ziggly line, so you can make it light up or play notes within the controller. These are the different ports of the input. So you can control, these are variables from the different ports, which is a little more complex into the pre-made robot. These are more of that, but these are the sensor values of the robots. And then we got, of course, the different math and logic variables in here. And at the very bottom is the controls, like before. So it's very similar to what we showed before, but there are subtle differences, such as the color, the icons, and a couple of the things, how they are, what they're called and what they do a little bit. So like, for example, instead of just repeat, we have repeat forever. Essentially the same block, it's different color, different name, but does the same So that is how you make your own controller. When you're done, you can name it anything you want and hit done, hit OK, and then you can hold your finger over it and you'll go back into it. Or you can, I think there's a way to delete it, but.
Thanks for taking some time to go into the custom controller, Noah. I think
Okay, I better wrap that up.
some of our participants are gonna have a lot of fun with that mode. We are going to wrap up now, but I just want to, I want anyone to ask any last questions if they have any. Now's the time. Noah's more than happy to answer any further questions. You will have access to the recording. Hopefully you'll have a chance to build some code and build your own controllers and test out all of the amazing functions that your mBot can do. I'm not seeing any other questions come in at the moment, so I think, except there's more of a comment. Thank you so much. It was really fun and exciting to see try the sound and the lights and experiment with their mBot. So I think many participants probably feel the same way. So thank you.
Happy to hear that. Well, it's a lot of fun and it becomes more intuitive with the more the time you use it. So you'll get, at the beginning, it'll be kind of like, this feels all wrong, and what am I doing? But over time, you'll get comfortable with the app and you'll be able to make your own things without a lot less friction between the processes of it. Eventually it becomes second nature and you won't be thinking what you're doing. It's like, oh, I just gotta make it move it forward, and you're dragging the blocks and you're not even thinking about the more minute details of how certain things collect together and things like that. It's just.
Yeah. You guys got to practice all weekend long because we can't wait to get to see your entries in the robot game competition that is part of Discovery Foundation Robot Week next week. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Laura, if you can help me out on the spotlight, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, so as I said earlier, Discovery Foundation Robot Week starts on Monday. You should be getting an email from Livet, our partners for Robot Week, tomorrow, at some point tomorrow. So that email will be going to the email that was used to register for Robot Week. So if that was a parent or an educator's email, make sure you get that information because it's going to have some key info about what you're going to need to be set up for Monday's live stream, which is going to be about how to build your obstacle course. So that's going to have all the parameters that you need to be eligible for the competition. So Monday you'll be building your obstacle course, and then Tuesday you'll have to send us a video with your robot maneuvering through the obstacle course. So all of the information is going to be sent to you during Robot Week. We're really excited. We've got some amazing prizes. We have a couple of light and sound add-ons as prizes. We've got the 6-legged robot add-on for your mBot as a prize. We've got a really cool Arduino starter kit and BBC microbit kit. There's tons of prizes. There's a 3D printed pen. So we had a lot of fun picking prizes, and we're really excited for you guys to enter this competition. It's not too late to enter Robot Week. So if you have a friend who even uses a different kind of robot, like Lego has a brand, or if anybody you know has a robot in their home, send them over to cast.com/robot-week. They can enter the robo games as well. So all of the content that is going to be delivered during next week's production of Discovery Foundation Robot Week is going to be fun and engaging, whether or not you are entering the competition. So we've got some really cool videos, some really amazing panelists who work professionally within robotics, highlighting self-driving vehicles and robotic arms. So it's going to be a great week full of engaging content just created specifically for youth. So please help us by sharing the event with your peers. As well, if you want to take some photos of yourself practicing with your robot this weekend and share them on social media using hashtag #GlowsRobotWeek, we'll compile those and share those in our social media as well. We really look forward to seeing you during Robot Week next week. I hope you have fun programming your robot between now and then. Have a great day.